Hello and welcome to another Wilderness Tamed video. And in this one I'm on location in the south of Spain. Why? Because I keep hearing people say that in order for our gardens to thrive in the oncoming onslaught of climate change, we need to think about planting Mediterranean species. Do we though? So in all honesty, the thought of planting UK gardens full of Mediterranean or more exotic species actually fills me with dread to some degree. I mean, I'm not totally against exotic stuff. In the right setting, looks great, you know, from a decorative point of view. But again, as I've said many times in previous videos, there aren't many native UK insect species that can benefit from exotic plant species. You see, everything adapts to its local environment, its local habitat, and the species around it. And by that I mean, you know, specific species of butterfly and moths will only lay their eggs on very specific food plants, such as, let's see, small pearl-bordered fritillary butterflies will only lay their eggs on marsh violets. So, how do we increase the populations of small pearl-bordered fritillary? We propagate more marsh violets. We look after habitats where marsh violets occur. So, filling our gardens with olive trees, such as this one behind me, rosemary, thyme, lavender, all great flower-producing plants, well, other than the olives, which bees love. I mean, don't get me wrong, a garden with lavender and rosemary and thyme, it's going to smell great and it's going to attract a lot of insects. But all they can do is pollinate the flowers. Again, I'm not aware of any native butterfly or moth species that will lay its eggs on those plants in order to secure the future of its species. So in this classic garrigue habitat in southern Spain, you can also find similar species of plants in southern France. There's not a lot here for UK butterfly species. There is some overlap with butterfly and moth species between sort of the southern counties of the UK and Mediterranean countries and into North Africa. But from where I am in the northeast of England, there's not a great overlap. Don't see a lot of swallowtails in County Durham or Northumberland. And yes, I know things like painted ladies are migratory, so they'll come up from, I think it's Morocco and North Africa into the UK. But again, they're quite specific on their plant species. And I know I'm emphasising the importance of butterflies and moths, and they are important. Whereas most people will say, oh, bees are important, bees are really important, they provide a lot of fruit for us. Well, yeah, they do. They pollinate a lot of fruit species. A large part of the human diet is based on grains, wheat, barley, corn, and in many parts of the world rice, which are wind pollinated. Just saying. So, oh, did I get my own shadow in there? Oh, amateur mistake. So yeah, and bees don't lay their eggs on specific plant species. they're only, gathering nectar and pollinating plants, which is all well and good in itself. But I think it's going to be a long time before we see UK gardens get as barren and as hard-baked as this little olive plantation here. And UK wildflowers and shrubs and trees have been in the UK since the last ice age, since the melt retreated, 10,000 years ago? And those plants existed before that as well, many of them. So they've been around a long time, and they've experienced some severe drought conditions, years and years of cold, wet weather. For example, when the Romans were here, they tried growing grapes and had 300 years of rubbish grape harvests because the weather was shocking, apparently. But then when the French came, the Normans, they had 100 years of quite successful grape growing and winemaking. It's just a look at the French, I guess. Poor old Italians often draw a short straw. So our native stuff, native flora, native fauna, has been around for long enough to adapt to and survive through many, many extremes of weather. So obviously, and I am slightly biased, I'm going to recommend that rather than filling the garden with exotics, you do actually consider planting more native species to benefit more native species. And so it goes on. And obviously, if you are looking to buy wildflower seeds, individual species, or mixes for a meadow, pond plants for a wildlife pond, then obviously you're going to look first at my store on wilderness-tamed.com/store. I'll probably put a link in the description below if I haven't already slapped one on the screen at this point. So yeah, help out the small local businessman. I was winking in case you couldn't see it behind the glasses there. And don't keep going to local garden centres and buying all their imported Italian and Dutch grown exotics. I don't want to put Italians and Dutch flower growers out of business, but I need the money more than they do. So in conclusion, native is the way to go. Exotics have their place, as I've said, especially some of the Mediterranean stuff. It's where we get a lot of our herbs from. But for a wildlife garden to thrive, you need to go native with your plant species to attract native insect species and bird species, mammals, amphibians, reptiles, blah blah blah, all the rest of the food web. So I know we've had a few hot years, some of the hottest since records began, 250 years ago. It's a very tiny snapshot into the sort of weather patterns and climate of the Earth overall, considering it's so many hundreds of millions of years old. Nature will do what she does best, adapt and survive. That's not to say we shouldn't cut down massively on what we buy from China. and pollution and, yeah, stuff like that. So if we all do our little part, it'll contribute to making the world a better place. And on that happy note, I bid you farewell. And the next time I see you, I might be back in the UK. But it's so nice here.